What is up, everybody? Mark on the mic here, Jim to my right, and across from us, a special guest. Ian, it's always great when you're able to join us. You are a wealth of knowledge, and I feel like you always underplay. You always underplay how much you know.
Yeah, that's debatable. But I could be doing it right now, so.
Yeah.
There he goes. He's doing it again, Jim.
This is like triple reverse psychology. I don't even know where I am anymore.
We all work for Vortex Optics. So occasionally, Jim, on the podcast, we talk about scopes. And we're going to talk about scopes today, but we're talking about bore scopes.
Ooh, one we don't make.
One we don't make, what they are, why a person might want to use it, what you might find, things you might be looking for that would tell you something maybe good or bad or something that you need to fix potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Ian, you have a borescope.
I do have a borescope. Borescopes are kind of interesting because it's a little bit of a Pandora's box. For a long time, I didn't have a borescope, and I thought, ignorance is bliss. We'll just do it that way and listen to the target, see what it wants to tell you, kind of feel your cleaning rod as you're cleaning the bore to see if there's constrictions in there, and can I feel them, can I not? But maybe if I don't see it, it's not there.
Yeah,
stick my head in the sand.
The ostrich method. I use that for any number of things.
Lots of things.
Yeah. Well, so
Jim, my life is in shambles right now. I can't even see it.
You know what? And you're the happiest I've ever seen you.
See? Case in point. If we back up, like 40 years ago, a borescope there was one option for it, and it kind of looked like that instrument that your family ear, eye, nose, throat doctor would use to look in your ears and your nose.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's an optical device, and it was like, surgical stainless tubing with mirrors inside it, and it had an eyepiece. Sometimes it was a 90-degree eyepiece to be able to position your head well. And then it had, believe it or not, like a threaded fitting for a flashlight, just a regular little mag light you'd screw in, and that was your light source to pipe light down to what you wanted to look at. But they were like $1,000, and it was sort of like this, almost this status thing within the shooting industry, like, oh, someone that's got one of those borescopes? That's pretty fancy.
Yeah.
And I'm just pretty Scotch by nature, so I just avoided spending $1,000 on that instrument. And it wasn't until like 5 years ago that all of a sudden these digital bore cameras came on the market. And I call them bore cameras because it's like a camera that's taking a digital image and presenting it on a screen. And it can be like a little handheld screen, or it could be your phone, or now they have wireless ones where you can just put it up on the TV if you want a really big image of what you're trying to look at. So that's what I have, and that's what I've been using and enjoying seeing things that I haven't seen before, is this bore camera. We call it a borescope. And it's like an Amazon special, and we're talking $60.
Much different now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at them online a little bit, and I was shocked at how economical they were.
Yeah. And I think it's, probably the cell phone industry that's driving those imaging sensors to be cheaper and cheaper. And, well, what other applications can we fit one of those imaging sensors in? Mm-hmm. So that's what I have and what I've been using. And there's good and bad. We'll try and hit on both in terms of being a borescope owner and using it. And the good, like, why would you get one? What would you want to use it for? You can actually see what's going on in your bore, in your barrel, obviously. And, back before I had one, if I'd contemplate buying a used gun, let's say, in a gun show or a Walmart parking lot or something like that, you'd you'd hold that gun up to the ambient light, and you try to look through it, and you're actually gonna see, like, is it shiny or is it dull? And that could be, is it clean or is it dirty? You're trying to pretend like you're tasting wine and everything. You're like, oh yeah, I think this one hasn't been shot very much, but you can't really tell much.
Yeah.
It'd be like, this tabletop looks dull, but if you got your eye at a really acute angle, it would be reflecting light and it would look shiny, and like, oh, this tabletop must be polished. It's not. You're just looking at it from a really poor vantage point.
Okay.
So the borescope actually lets you get in there and see what the surface condition of that bore really is. So some good things about them if you have one handy, you can appraise a rifle in terms of its condition, its bore condition. Has it been shot very much? Has it been taken care of? Were there corrosive elements used that weren't cleaned up, and now it's got a bunch of pitting and things like that, and you can make some sort of determination, qualification about this gun that you might be buying. The other thing is, what are you doing when you're actually cleaning your barrel? Are you doing what you think you're doing? Are you getting all the fouling out? Or is it sort of like a half cleaning that you're doing? And before I had one, it was sort of like, well, is the rifle going to shoot well or not? Does it need to be cleaned? I think it does. So I'd clean it, and then it shot better, but maybe not as good as it could have if I really would have cleaned it well. So there's other things that you can all of a sudden start to get a good visual representation of. We've heard of, in previous podcasts, people talk about phenomenon in either reloading or bore condition, where you might talk about something like case head separation in a metallic cartridge case. Well, that happens. It's a phenomenon that sort of initiates from the inside out. It's hard to see down inside that dirty fired case, right? Well, I use my borescope now all the time to go inside of a 4, 5, 6 times fired case to see, is that case head separation starting or not?
Here's an idea.
Before I had it, I'd take a paper clip and I'd bend it out and then put a little hook on it and fish it through there and try and feel for a little ridge. If I could feel that ridge, I'm like, okay, I think I'll retire that case. Now I can get conclusive, like, yep, I can see a line starting there. I'm not going to fire that one again. So good safety use for it. Have you guys heard of like carbon fouling in your bore, specifically called a carbon ring?
I have, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so it's hard to even picture that in your head. What does carbon ring look like? Why would I want to investigate or search for that? But what it is a buildup of carbon fouling right at the end of your chamber, sort of like where the case neck mouth would be if you had a loaded round in there. And if you allow that carbon to sort of build up, it coats the inside of your chamber and creates a constriction.
Right.
And then it acts like a crimping die. When you go and load a loaded round in there, it'll actually impinge on the neck, which thereby impinges on the bullet. And as soon as you have that quasi crimp on the bullet, your pressures really spike. Your internal ballistics are off. What you thought you had for muzzle velocity is totally different. And it really causes a lot of problems. Well, it's also one of the harder types of fouling to clean if you can't see it, what you're doing. So I'd say probably half of my use of my borescope now is looking at that carbon ring and making sure that I'm doing a good job of cleaning that itself. The bore, you can get a pretty good feel for, whether it's smooth and clean or not. But even that, sometimes it'll feel clean on the patch. The patch will come out bright white, like you think you did a good job. But in those inside corners of the grooves, there's still a bunch of hard carbon in there that needs more work. So those are all the good parts of having and using a borescope. And now the entry price being so low, it's like, this is a good tool to have on your loading bench or your cleaning bench.
Mm-hmm. Is it an obvious thing, like, to your casual gun owner and shooter? Is it obvious enough that if they just got a borescope, stuck it down a bore, they're going to be like, oh yeah, that doesn't look good, or that looks fine, or like you have a lot of experience shooting and messing with guns and all that type of thing. But like, for example, I think about, and I by no means am like a professional mechanic with vehicles or anything like that. Vehicles are extremely complicated, but like when you're first starting out, you walk up and you look at something. It's like you're buying a used car, and like if you don't know what you're doing, the car is running, and you're like, it's running. Yeah. I don't know, but like maybe there's a little tick, tick, tick that someone else would hear, or there's a little squeal or something like that somebody else would hear. Oh, that's your power steering pump, or that's something. So like, could a casual gun user just stick a borescope down and be like, oh, I can see that in the corners of the rifling, there's, something like that?
I think not on their first go, but all it would take is a little bit of Google Foo and like bring up some images of what does carbon fouling look like?
Okay.
What does copper fouling look like? What does fire cracking or bore erosion look like? If you had those images in front of you, then someone who wasn't even a shooter could use one of these devices and put on, they come with different angled mirrors, so you can see 90 degrees to the sidewall or straight down. That sort of
interesting.
thing.
Okay.
So put on that 90-degree mirror, so you're looking directly at the sidewall, and they could like say, "Oh yeah, exactly. I've got copper fouling in there that I need to remove." So it's pretty intuitive. You just have to know what do the different conditions look like.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good segue though into one of the negatives of owning a borescope, and that is, we talked in the past, people that are really serious into hand loading and long-range shooting can sometimes be very detail-oriented and very discriminating. So if you've got one of those folks, they get themselves a borescope, even if it's a brand new barrel that's never had a round down it, they'll want to evaluate it. And they'll put this...
So that was going to be one of my questions, though. Would you ever take a gun, whether it's a gun off the rack at a place, and be like, I'm going to need to borescope this first?
I bet you people do it all the time. I've never seen it in person, like at a gun store, but I know there are guys out there that probably take them to the store.
And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. Maybe you should be paying attention to that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think 1 out of 100 times it would actually, reveal something that should be addressed.
Okay.
So I do know a couple anecdotes of and these weren't new barrels. These were barrels that were kind of giving a little bit of trouble to the target shooters that were using them. So they decided, well, I'm just going to take a look and see if there's something in there that maybe shouldn't be in there, if there was a defect in manufacturing. And actually found a void in the steel that was, think of like a pothole on a road.
Yeah.
That's just picking up a bunch of fouling and causing some problems in terms of precision for that rifle. And to their credit, the barrel manufacturer said, absolutely, we see the pictures that you just emailed us. That negative space right there shouldn't be there, and that was something that was part of the raw steel that we started with that we didn't catch. Please send it in. We'll send you a new barrel. Customer was happy. They took care of it.
Yeah.
I think the other side of that coin, the other end of that spectrum, is looking for any tiny little machining mark or natural mark that would be caused by the process of boring out and rifling and lapping this barrel.
I mean, there's going to be a degree of that just takes, shooting in that rifle and filling that with some copper or with some fouling, right?
Yeah. So now you're providing this tool to folks that they can't necessarily put those artifacts into context and say well, I know it looks this big on your screen that you're piping this image to, but it's actually super, super tiny and it won't last after. It's sort of like if you saw annular rings in a brand new piston cylinder. It's not detrimental. So,
or you have those people who go to the car lot now on cars. I'm back, Mark. But you have people and they go to a car that's been sitting outside on the lot forever, and they're like, "Well, there's rust on the caliper or on the rotors of the brakes."
Yeah,
and they're like, "That's because it's been sitting outside." They're like, "Well, I can't have that." It's like, drive it for 5 miles and it'll be gone.
Yeah. In the grand scheme of things, though, it's a means of educating the general shooter hand loader so that they can start to realize what's important, what isn't important. I think the guys that are and gals that really know what they're doing will sort of look at the evidence that they see and then say, well, how is it actually influencing how this rifle shoots? Because you can sort of convince yourself that a rifle is used up or no good if you see some fire cracking or some wear, some throat erosion, and it might reduce your confidence in that rifle, or be the ostrich, shoot the rifle, and it does great on your hunt, and it does great on your match.
Right. What's the deal? That's kind of one of the things I was going to ask you, Ian, is what's the deal with bores and, well, even some of it's just barrels and rifles in general? Because, some guns that I'm very familiar with, heard many anecdotes from many people on where, heck, Justin has one down at the range, for example. It's a 300 Win Mag. He can get basically 4 to 5 rounds out of it before he has to clean it. And the 4 to 5 or something like that, a couple of rounds that he can shoot through it and just hammer. And then it completely delaminates and goes to crap. And then he cleans it and it's back to being a hammer. And then there's my Ruger American, which I've talked about on numerous occasions, and I just used this last weekend, Mark.
Killed 2 deer with it. Which, in some amazing or just awesome proximity, I got to see, I was in a different place, but got to see both of them go down.
That's right, yeah. So that gun I've had for 10, 11 years. I've never once touched it with a single cleaning solution, ever. Nothing. It probably has, I don't know, it's 6.5 Creedmoor. It has like 1,000 to 1,200 rounds through it, you know. And I just let it sit for 5 years in my gun safe before taking it out again, like last minute before deer season. Slapped a scope on it, and it was still just like, I was like, well, we'll see how this goes. One hole. Again, it has always done that for me. It never hasn't, and I abused the heck out of it. The bolt was a little sticky, and I was like, I'll just dump a bunch of lube right down the backside of the bolt here. It smoothed out again, and it was just right back to just like it was when it was new. And I'm like, why do I bother?
It's like seasoning cast iron, Jim.
I guess so.
Those rifles are special that do that. I have a soft spot in my heart for rifles that are very low maintenance, and it's like that car that will always start and will always get you to where you want to be.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a lot of factors that play into that. I think bore diameter is one, and especially the ratio of bore diameter to, propellant that you're using, because all these powders, they have byproducts when you burn them that deposit on the barrel. Call it fouling. It's made up a lot of different constituents, but I think on a percentage basis, the amount of extra material you're putting in that bore relative to the bore diameter itself makes a difference in how soon you'd have to clean. I don't know if you guys have ever owned any 17 caliber centerfire rifles.
I don't.
I do have one, and now I'm worried what you're going to say.
Well, they're notorious for, because it's at one end of the spectrum, they're notorious for needing to be cleaned a lot because, once again, small diameter bore takes a little bit of fouling to actually make a big difference on a percentage basis.
I see. Yeah.
How much you're constricting that diameter and that sort of thing. But with a rifle that needs to be cleaned after 4 rounds, that's a bit anomalous. That's sort of like, maybe he has that carbon ring on there, and he's getting just enough when he cleans it to allow that neck to just slip in there with a line fit 0-0 clearance. And then after 4 shots, there's enough carbon left for that the 5th shot starts to spike.
It's honestly a rifle that I know he got from someone else, and that someone else had significant issues with the gun, and it was like a to and from the manufacturer type thing, and they figured it out. And Justin, who has a lot of experience with this sort of thing, and he has run every load imaginable through the thing. He found one that shot pretty good, but he has to clean it like a lot, and it's just it's interesting how that all worked out. But yeah, then like I said, I'm meanwhile like a gun that's just absolutely abused essentially, and it still just shoots one hole, and I'm like, what is the deal? What is the deal with these things?
And if I were in your position, I'd be asking myself, should I even ever introduce it to a cleaning rod?
Right.
I
don't want to screw up a good thing.
Yeah, that was another question I had. Is because at this point, like, it's held together with, I don't know, magic and something else like pixie dust, and so I don't want to get any of that out of there.
I would just enjoy it.
I guess so.
Until you see something different, and then maybe address it. But
Yeah. No, you're lucky if you have a rifle like that. That's mine. I'm somewhere in the middle where I can tell that, if I clean down to bare metal, I'm going to need a good 15 rounds to sort of, it's almost like you're filling in some of those cracks that you've exposed. So it's a nice smooth surface again with copper and stuff. And then it shoots fantastic. These are my 308s for, 150 rounds. And then I can see it just slowly start to open up. I can bring that back by cleaning it. So that's, I think, typical if you're really paying attention to group size and things like that. But, are you ever going to get to 150 rounds on your favorite deer rifle? Sometimes not.
Yeah.
So
I'd love to know the science of what goes into those guns like my Ruger or many of the other guns out there on the market or in the world that have that ability to just kind of like never need any attention. Like what are all the many little variables that somehow, if you had like a little range where like, had all these attributes and they each had their special range where if they were in the green, they were good. And somehow those rifles, just every single attribute, it's just in the green. Nothing is out of spec or wonky anywhere. It's just everything is just right, and it just never needs a single thing.
And then if you can characterize all those factors and then replicate it or have a recipe to get all your other rifles in the green, that would be
We should borescope that American sometime. I'd be curious what a person like Ian would see when
I don't think you want to.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think I could have enough mental fortitude to like not do anything about it and just continue to enjoy it. But I would be really curious just to know, like,
it's gonna be gnarly.
I bet
It's gonna be a horror show.
There's probably there's probably all sorts of stalactites and stalagmites in there, but it's still just like hammers.
Oh yeah. We'll give all kinds of people nightmares. I can't believe you're even shooting that anymore. Be like, well,
The bullets like ping, 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 ping.
Yep. Wait, this was chambered in something else the whole time.
right. It's probably got enough stuff in it to the point now I could shoot a 6 Creedmoor through it.
Yeah.
But
Ian, have you? So I mean, you've got a lot of shooting knowledge. When you got your bore scope, did you, or do you like confirm suspicions, or like do you always have a hypothesis? Like, I think this is what's going on, and then you run it through, and you're like, "Yep, that was it." Or conversely, you're like, "I think this is what's going on." Well, that's not it at all. What is it?
Yeah, I think I'd be lying if I said both scenarios didn't play out.
Mm-hmm.
It's validating when you say, yeah, I can feel like a little bit of a constriction about 2 inches from the muzzle, and you go down there and, there's some stubborn copper that deposited down there, and I didn't get it out. So that's validating, and you can go to town and get that out. Yeah, other times, I have a hypothesis, and the bore scope as a useful tool in terms of troubleshooting, and I can cross that off the list, and that's not the suspect, it's something else. So as a troubleshooting tool, it comes in handy too every once in a while.
We talked about that carbon ring on the like you said, where the kind of the case mouth enters and opens up, and like you've got a lot of powder, potentially maybe more unburnt powder, I guess, like at that point. And is that kind of what's causing that, or is it just like that's just like where that explosion, if you will, is happening initially, and it's just going to build up more there?
Yeah, I think both factors come into play. You have more ejecta or solids and fouling that's grabbing the sidewalls of your chamber and your bore and the beginning part of your bore, which is called your free bore, and then your lead, and then the rifling section.
Mm-hmm.
It all kind of like collects there a little bit more because it's closest to the business end. But because it's so close, it also experiences higher temperatures and higher pressures.
Oh, mm-hmm.
So the combination of temperature and pressure will affect the surface finish integrity of the steel that's there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's just experiencing a lot more stress.
A lot more stress, whatever you want to call it. And I think that increased roughness for that, is sort of like a microfile to the bullet and everything, and it starts to grab a little bit more copper now in that area because it's not as smooth, because it's now sort of fire cracked, and it'll look like the Badlands of South Dakota with that bore scope when you go in there and look at like a dry lake bed kind of thing. And the barrels that I've actually shot out, that I believe that I've reached that point where I can say, yep, I've shot that barrel out. That dry lake bed looking surface of the steel will all of a sudden exhibit a whole little fleck of steel that's missing. Like if you look at a dry lake bed, how it's it almost looks like a mosaic made of tile.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, picture one of those tiles, or maybe two of them next to each other, just gone. They've lifted up and they're out the bore.
Wow.
And now you've got this literal void that the bullet has to skip over, and it's grabbing jacket material every time it does that, and it's starting to exacerbate the whole situation. Now that copper wants to grab carbon, and they start to layer on each other. And instead of 150 rounds when I need to clean, now it's 100 rounds. And all of a sudden my precision starts to get a lot, more picky in terms of the condition of that bore. So it's a good diagnostic tool to say, yep, time to make that into a tomato stick, put a new barrel on that rifle, and good to go.
Mm-hmm.
What about the other end of the barrel? Anything with the crown a person might want to pay attention to?
Yeah, so they're great in terms of inspecting the condition of your crown. Crowns can be refreshed, just skim cut. There's hand tools to do that, or you can have your gunsmith do that. But diagnosing the problem in terms of I set that down on the muzzle and it created a nick in my crown. Bore scope's good for that. I saw a guy one time, he was building an AR, and he was mounting the gas port to it, and it happened to be a barrel that didn't have any kind of fiducial mark on the outside. They call it a dimple or something, so that when you're lined up with the orifice. So he actually just stuck his bore scope in and found the hole, and then just rotated his gas block until that was perfectly aligned, and then tightened it down, and that's another useful.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I actually wonder if I'm not a suppressor genius, but I am an enthusiast, and I've had one instance where there was some keyholing that I was getting when I put a can on. And it was like I must be getting a baffle strike or something. And when I looked at it with my naked eye, it was really difficult to tell, just looking down like the bore of the suppressor. And I was kind of thinking to myself, I almost wonder if having a borescope of some sort to be able to put in there, you could actually get like a really close up view of the baffles, and I might see. I've heard from some people that sometimes it can be really obvious, but other times it can just be very slight.
Yeah, and maybe at an acute angle, like you'd be looking at it from the outside, you wouldn't be able to see that slight nick.
Right.
I'm just getting into suppressors now, so I haven't used it for that purpose, but I bet you could see it crystal clear if you did.
Or even you could go through the suppressor and be like, well, there's nothing here. And then it's, well, now time to inspect the muzzle device that it attaches to.
Yeah.
Or something like that. It would just, that could be a nice use for it.
Interesting, yeah.
But,
overall, pretty handy. Now that they're so accessible, there's really no reason maybe not to have one in your little toolkit. If you like gadgets, just remember that, what you see and through the borescope shouldn't trump your, experiential evidence in terms of, well, the rifle still shoots really well, it still functions really well, that sort of thing.
I mean, Jim, your rifle that is like case in point, right? You're like, you might look down there, like, oh my gosh, it's terrible. We need to fix this. It's like, well, do you?
Yeah.
It's working really well.
Yeah.
And even if it doesn't influence your practices, if you're just sort of curious, it's still kind of a neat sciencey thing where you can go and take a look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll end up using it for your automotive stuff, no doubt. Endoscopic cameras,
how small are they? Like, do you need to get like a 223 caliber one or a 30 caliber one or a 17
Yeah, good question.
Or do you get one and it just works with everything?
Most of the sort of ones that are just serving an industry that isn't necessarily about shooting, but you can use them for shooting, are like 5 millimeter. That seems to be the go-to diameter, which is less than 22 caliber. So you can inspect a 22 caliber.
Perfect.
With a 5 millimeter. And some of them are fiber optic flexible and some of them are rigid. And I kind of like the rigid ones because they're easier to manipulate. You can turn, and you get a little bit more positive control of it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, some of them have, like a Bluetooth chip in them so that you can just pipe it to your phone. Otherwise, they'll have a dedicated monitor that you plug it into to check it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. But yeah, I think back in the day, you really only had like a 17-inch option, so you had to go in through both ends of the barrel to really see the whole barrel. But the one I've got now, it's like a 30-inch. It's pretty long. Yeah.
Right. Tom Leatherbear would need an even longer one though for all his barrels.
Yeah, that's true. Are you going in? Are you going in from the crown or from the other way, or both?
I like going in from the chamber, just because I can actually use my bore guide. So the bore guide is that thing that aligns your cleaning rod with the bore so that you're not going in at a hard angle and sort of scraping things you're not supposed to scrape.
Okay.
And once again, these instruments, they have like stainless steel tubes, so it's not something that you really want to, you have to be gentle with them.
You don't want to gouge anything.
Yeah. When I do go in from the muzzle, I'm just very conscientious. Like, I'm not scraping one side of the muzzle the whole time, and obviously keep it clean so it's not dirty and acting like a lap when you don't want it to. But I usually go in through the chamber just because I'm really interested in that first inch or so. Yeah, and see what shape that's in.
Cool, man. This was super interesting.
Absolutely, it was.
I liked it.
Ian undersold us once again. Right before turning on the mics.
I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, I knew it.
No, just buy one. They're a good tool to have. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, there you have it. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Jim. Thanks, everybody out there, for listening. Man, I'm always learning stuff around here, Jim. That's why I love the podcast.
It's fun.
It is fun. So, maybe get yourself a borescope. Have you been using one? What are you finding? Is it a very useful tool in your toolkit, or are you going to get one now? Jim, we should get one.
Why not? Start borescoping everything. I'm going to borescope you. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Don't borescope your friends. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.